The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, midweek editions here. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hope you're doing okay. We'll get our starting five shout-outs going. Some more insight from Coach Rhule on an Infinity Sports pod. We'll hear a little bit from Coach Rhule. Mike Babcock, Mr. Husker Football, with us in about 15 minutes or so. We'll check in with Babbers from Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. In hour two, Evan Bland going to join us from the Omaha World Herald. No Jock Doc today, Dr. Brandon traveling, so we'll run him down next week. But an extended sit-down. Let's head on down to SEC country with a touch of Big Red. Lars Anderson going to join us for a couple of segments right around 5:25. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 489-1240, 800-825-5865. Can watch the show, check it out on the stream if you haven't. Hail Varsity YouTube, like and subscribe there. Give us a find and follow on Twitter as well at HVarsity Radio. At Herbal Essence for Elijah, at Schmidt_radio. For me, Chris Schmidt. So email as well, Chris at hailvarsity.com. Elijah, how we doing? Already to Wednesday. We get to pack up the old truckster and head to Pinnacle Bank Championships tomorrow and Friday at Indian Creek. That is going to be glorious. Going to be fabulous golf weather. Just an incredible tournament that brings so much talent to the Omaha metro region every year, man. And they aren't asking us to chip, putt, or tee off, so we can just sit back and enjoy.
Good, yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. You dressed formally a day early, I think, for the Pinnacle Bank Championship.
No.
You were in a suit and tie in here in the studio.
Listen. We've got some hardware to claim tonight, which is going to be awesome. Possibly claim tonight. I got the old sport coat resized. Thank you, Uncle Nate and Gary Michaels, for that. So, yeah, I had to get the old sport coat dusted off. The tie I wanted to wear was crumpled in the corner of the closet I share with my lovely wife. So I'm going with an audible tie, and yeah, man, ready to rock and roll.
It's crazy they have an awards banquet for stupidest golf injury of the year. Congrats, by the way.
So I show up, he starts whistling at me, and he's like, "Well done. Your pant leg is tucked into your boot like a loser." I got this stupid boot for another 3 weeks, I hope. So the slacks look nice on one side, and they're tucked in like I'm wearing throwback baseball pants. You know,
yeah.
The style to show all of the socks, right?
You should have gone with actual stirrup socks.
No.
Roll the pants up above the knee.
So yeah, there's no way the pant leg would have fit over the boot.
Yeah, so you had to tuck it in. I will say full credit to you. I'm noticing now not a clip-on tie.
No,
you've actually tied it. I'm proud of you.
It's loosened up. Like well.
You look like the businessman who is completed a business deal and is now at the corner bar. Loosened up the tie, rolled up the sleeves. The deal wasn't great, but it might save his job for a bit.
Nobody's happy. It's one of those. It's a great deal because nobody's happy. That's funny. That's pretty good. Let's get into the starting five shout-outs. Justin is in. Justin, good to have you. Arlo is here in second. Uncle Jimmy says, hello, Chris and Elijah. The Sexy Grinch reports, formerly crew. Part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Jeff Snitley in at 5. Tiger Shark Diver says, I'm fully hussed and drinking Kool-Aid. You and most of the state and the surrounding areas that are fans of Big Red football. KG, I am here.
And KG would go on to say, Schmidty, you're dressed like you're an investment banker who sold while it was low and bought while it was high.
Right. Yep. Eat Beef is here. Good to have you, Eat Beef. Crazy Spider Adventure continues the Carolina tour. He's at Duke, which is nice. The other Dave, good Rhule interview on Infinity Sports. Yep, Dave, we are getting there shortly. Good to have Dave in. Weston says hello. Weston, good to have you. The real Matthew is here. Patrick checks in and roll calls his pals in the stream. Justin, KG, Weston, and Matthew. Jeff is here. William, help me out here. Elijah, ATX, is that ATL maybe?
ATX, Austin, Texas.
Okay, strike two on me. Forgive me. William has a tunnel walk take. Can we take serious and update it instead of replacing it? Revamp, redesign, re-NU it? Possibly. Brennan from the Black Hills. Brennan, how did you shoot? You were playing golf in an incredible course on the Black Hills. Sal is here. Jack is in. Husker Steve checks in as well. Mudflaps says Schmidty is looking sharp. Thank you, Mudflaps. And Tuck is here along with Blake. Another Snitley checks in. And Chris. Chris says, pro sports reporter. I am not the best dressed ever, though. Babcock has an award for it. He will tell you about in about 10 minutes. It's on his wall. Best dressed in possibly college football one year. Babbers will recount that story. So the podcast is with Infinity Sports that Rhule appeared on, and Rhule does a good job of spending time locally, absolutely, but does a great job of networking nationally. Elijah, and a lot's covered, but let's just say we got to the edge of the cliff. I'm going to interpret it this way. I wonder how you feel about, the hints, the breadcrumbs, the obvious about quarterback one in Lincoln in Dylan Raiola. Let's hear from Matt Rhule here. Cut to what makes Raiola special as a freshman.
Well, I mean, he's a winner. He understands the game. He's thinking about the game, all the time. He's studied everything. If a receiver lines up wrong, I mean, he knows it. A lot of guys, when they're that age, they're playing kind of, not clear-minded because they just know what they're supposed to do. But Dylan knows what every guy on the field is supposed to do because he's put so much time and work in, and so he's like I said, he loves to compete. He loves playing. He loves practicing, and I think that's contagious, and it's good to have from him.
So, all sorts of attributes, all things that you want your quarterback to know where everyone's going, and the poise is key. And when it comes to quarterback play, Elijah, the thing that can make you retire early, go gray, lose hair, become best friends with Jack Daniels, all of those things as a coach is the turnovers. And think about how Nebraska got down with the turnovers last year. It was a back-breaking drive. That moment, you're about to go in, you're in the red zone, Iowa interception to end it. Iowa interception to end it. Michigan State, some uncanny picks as you're across the 50. And then even you rewind all the way back to the beginning of last year as one of us is huffing and puffing and finding our way into Boulder's press box. Think about where Nebraska was at. Minnesota to interception, a couple of turnovers, fumble, and then interception as you have the lead. You have the lead game one. Then you go to Boulder, and you drop a couple of snaps as you're driving, one deep in your territory, one deep in CU's territory. That's a word he used in this interview, is befuddling. And those are just, dude, take care of the football moments.
And I think you can also track two other games Wisconsin and Maryland, a lot of people were scratching their heads about some clock management decisions by the coaching staff, which I think you can track back to uncertainty at the quarterback position. Not being able to trust your quarterback makes you make some weird decisions in those moments because, we're not convinced that our quarterback's not going to turn the football over here, so let's make sure we run the clock a little bit against Wisconsin and put yourself in a bad place. You don't go for a touchdown. Flip side of things, you have the Maryland game where you're trying to get down there and score, and your quarterback does turn the football over. And now there's a whole bunch of time on the clock for Maryland. Like there's the butterfly effect of not just turning the football over, but not trusting your quarterback to not turn the football over leads to other late game management things. That is 2 more games that you lose by 3 points, which adds that total because I think you can trace it back to the quarterback play.
It all stacks on top of certainty. Or, all right, what do I know? What am I confident I can get in my quarterback? And you played 3 of them last year, and they were all at different levels. And the consistent part of their game was the inconsistency. It's not that they did some bad things all the time. They gave you great effort. But from a can they go finish it off standpoint, it was not quite there. Let's hear from Matt Rhule on that quarterback competition update, cut 5. And again, he's not named a starter, but plenty of positives about Dylan Raiola on yesterday's pod.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan's done a great job. I mean, he's played really, really well. We're blessed also. You understand how football is, everyone's fighting to compete. We have Heinrich Harburg who won 5 games last year at the University of Nebraska, and which not many people have done recently. And he and Dylan have this amazing relationship, but are also fighting tooth and nail to be the guy on the field. And then we have Danny Kalen, who's another elite recruit, who's probably one of the fastest processors I've ever seen. So we have probably one of the best quarterback rooms I've ever been a part of. And they're all fighting with each other right now, but in a good way. And so, they all get their reps. So, when the time comes, we'll make a decision. But, I'm looking at things nowadays as with this new expanded playoff, Zach. I need to have guys ready for game 12, then hopefully go a bowl game or Big Ten championship game 13, maybe get into the playoffs at some point. So I'm trying to build depth, and the guys are hanging along with me with it.
More on that trust from Rhule at quarterback.
Yeah. I have nothing but confidence in Dylan, and to your point, I have nothing but confidence in those other 2 quarterbacks as well. But Dylan, to me, this is these climbs. Sometimes people think like it goes like this, right? But usually in life, everything kind of goes up, down. So when you play a freshman quarterback, and I've done it twice, I did it with PJ Walker at Temple. I did it with Charlie Brewer at Baylor. You have to be willing to ride the highs and the lows. And the last thing you want is quarterbacks playing afraid, And so we're saying in one stretch, hey, we don't want to turn the ball over, but hey, we also want to be explosive. Well, that's actually a metric called toxic differential, and we want to be explosive. And so there's going to be some times where maybe we turn the ball over. We just don't want to turn the ball over in the ways we turned it over last year. So I think all 3 of our quarterbacks understand that. But I know Dylan certainly does, and if he goes out there game 1, he'll be ready.
So that's a vote of confidence. He's not wrong. You need everybody ready to go. Case in point with the offensive line this year with the Teddy news yesterday. A little bit more on the offense. You heard about that toxic differential. Well, that's more good than bad plays from your quarterback. Complementary football is also a key word that you hear. And the offense, where's it at in comparison, cut 4 with the defense?
Oh, the offense is definitely catching up. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. There's a lot of even practices right now. And, I can feel myself sometimes in practice out there, Zach, getting after the defense like, then I watch the tape and they're doing all the same things they were doing. We're just better on offense. We're a year more developed. The offensive line's bigger, stronger. Now we had a huge injury yesterday. Our starting left tackle, Teddy Prochazka, unfortunately tore his knee. But we have guys behind him who can play, and our tight ends are a year stronger. We've got 5 or 6 backs that we can put in the game. Our skill outside at receiver is probably one of the best rooms I've ever been around. So it's not just about hitting one position. I think we're just better across the board, whether it's the guys that played for us last year just being a year older or the guys we've added in. So I think I'm always going to have a defensive team. We're always going to play defense. But at the same time, I think we'll have the chance to score points and certainly won't be where we were last year.
Can I say that was the most telling cut of anything we've heard so far?
Big time. That the offense is catching up. What the hell's going on with the defense? Oh, they're facing a potent, dare we say, or good offense in practice every day.
And that's what I said it last Monday whenever we were kind of doing some of our fall camp preview. Like, one of the things I'm going to be listening for and watching for is, can the offense win any days, especially early in camp? Because the standard through most fall camps across America is that the defense starts with an advantage because there's so much install and timing that needs to get right with your offense. The defense is just see ball, go get ball, go hit ball. Like that's the very simple bare bones part of defense. Like, they're usually further ahead in the early part of fall camp. Matt Rhule saying the offense is at least matching the defense early in fall camp, which is a known commodity. That's what he told us at Big Ten Media Days. We can compare our offense to a known commodity in our defense. Tells me a lot about the development of the offense through the offseason and through this early part of fall camp.
It's okay to get excited about a freshman quarterback that can pull the trigger in ways that you've not had in Lincoln before. It's okay to get excited with the running back room and the skill position players.
I mean, he said that wide receiver room is one of the best rooms he's ever been around.
Well, and he's not going to just lay it on thick because he's the one, rightfully so, still screaming about being 5-7. But it is about matchups. And Nebraska can be a real matchup problem on offense for a lot of teams. And if they can give their own defense, top 20 in the country, returning 9 of the 11, that's a great sign. What's Mike Babcock think moving forward? We'll check in with Babbers from Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. Great to be with you on a Wednesday. Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity with you, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Mike Babcock with us, Mr. Husker Football at MD Babs on Twitter, and get subscribed to his bi-weekly newsletter, Mike B at hurrdatsports.com. It's where you can send an email. And Babbers, I think the latest is on that memorable 88 Nebraska OU game in the monsoon. Switzer somehow lit a cigarette on the sideline as rain was pouring down. I asked him about that a couple of years ago. He's like, yeah, well, sometimes you just got to have a smoke, Chris, was Barry's response. But what a ball game. Lawrence Pete, come on down.
Yeah, that was quite the game. You would think that when you score right away that it's going to be something.
Be a good day.
Yeah, 7-3. It's almost like you're looking for your bullpen to come in and take care of them.
Yeah, that was tough ball game, but good way to finish off another top 10 season for Nebraska. Mike, we just played some clips. I think you maybe heard some of it from Rhule's appearance on Infinity Sports. Just talking Raiola, talking quarterback, and I want to get your assessment here with the Prochazka injury. As we were looking at O-line, we always highlight it when we talk, bud. So interested to see how you think things progress with a guy that has a chance to go out the right way, and Turner Corcoran now moving in, and everyone's sick for Teddy, of course. I don't want to go move on to Turner without touching on Teddy first. But O-line, do you reassess now?
Well, I don't think you reassess, but that's a blow. I mean, I really thought that Teddy was going to be the guy at left tackle, in my opinion, and I thought he had enough experience that he was going to be one of the leaders in the offensive line. You know, he had that opportunity along with Ben Scott and Bryce Benhart, but you know, you move on, like Rhule has said before. It's almost like next man up kind of a thing, and Turner Corcoran can play just about anywhere, I think, in the offensive line, but left tackle is where he's probably most comfortable, and so he's going to fit in there. And you know, then I don't know, Gunnar Gatula, you know, who's going to be the backup, or they're talking about, you know, that third tackle that could play either way, either side of the ball. It's really important. That offensive line is really important. but I think Corcoran has 30 starts during his career, so he's got some experience, I think that's obviously important in the offensive line, and it's magnified, of course, because you're going to have a freshman quarterback, and the offensive line needs to provide the kind of protection that we were expecting.
Mike, how do you rate your concern level with Corcoran stepping in? As we talked with Mitch Sherman yesterday, he's been much maligned throughout his Husker career. That much is obvious. Turner Corcoran, he hasn't quite lived up to the high expectations that were placed on him whenever he was a high 4-star coming out of Kansas a couple of seasons ago. What is your concern level with Turner Corcoran stepping into that left tackle position? Because I can go two ways with it. One, he's kind of shown you what he is through his Husker career, which is not a top-line guy on your offensive line. But on the flip side of things, he had the potential. He has another year under Donovan Raiola, a full offseason to work on being a left tackle, and now pretty much a full fall camp knowing you're going to be the number one guy at left tackle, playing against a very, very high-level defensive line with all Nebraska's returners. Whenever you get the ones on the ones in fall camp, Turner's going to get a look that's probably about as good as any defensive line he's going to face this year, and that gives a chance for development. What side of that coin are you on?
I listened to Mitch yesterday. He's really good, so I should just say, I agree with everything Mitch said. We can move on. But, I think that, overall it hasn't been the kind of career that you would expect, but he's had his moments. I mean, there's evidence there that he can be the kind of player that you need him to be. And I think your observation that he has a good share of fall camp to develop that going against a defensive line that's really very good. I think he'll be in a position where he can get the job done, and he's surrounded by guys that have experience and can provide that. He's part of a group, and I think that's important as well. I mean, it's not like just one guy is going out there and he's going to have to do it. He's got other guys around him that can get the job done. So I'm more on the positive side from that. The biggest concern, I guess, is now we've got a little bit of a depth issue. Who's going to step up behind the backup guy? And again, it could be a guy that could play right tackle or left tackle as the backup, the third tackle, who could be Gunnar Gatula or whatever.
Mike, what do you think Coach Rhule talking about the offense catching up with the defense?
I feel good about that because of the fact that, as you observed, I think earlier, Coach Rhule, he doesn't just say these things. I don't think. Guess we'll find out. But I think that they're supported in his mind by what he's seen on the practice field and what he saw last season, and put it all together, and here's what we've got, kind of a thing. So you have to feel good about that. I think you have to take him at his word there. It's easy again at this time of year, fall camp. It's almost as good as you want it to be because you haven't played any games and you've got some time yet to contemplate that. But I thought it was interesting, his observation about the receiver room. I thought that was interesting, and I think that they do have good running backs if they can stay healthy. I just think that the same way with the receivers, they've got a lot of guys that could play receiver. They've got some depth there, and some young guys that were thrown into the fire last year. I've mentioned this already time before, but Malachi Coleman, I really look for him to have a good season, and you got a couple of transfers in there, so you got to feel good about the guys that are going to be around Dylan Raiola.
So no concerns about the defense following quote that the offense has caught up with them? That doesn't concern you?
Catching up.
Well, I want to take the positive approach and say that it's a good thing that the offensive line is catching up with a very good defensive line, because I do think that Nebraska has a very good defensive line. And if the offensive line can catch up to some degree with that defensive line, I think that only speaks well for for the Huskers going into the season, because you're not going to be playing against that defensive line once the ball is snapped. So if you're at that level, you've developed at that level, that's a good thing for the team.
Here's a question. I mean, how many defensive fronts do you think is on Nebraska's schedule as we look at it right now, Mike, that's comparable to what they see in practice every day?
Well, the
Buckeyes, sure, but who else?
Yeah, as you get later into the season, probably you're looking at maybe some teams.
November.
Yeah. But by that time, again, you're going to have the opportunity to develop, I think, as the schedule allows you to do, and as the coaches play guys into the lineup. You got a couple of games there. Scheduled wins kind of games, which you hope that's what happens. But UTEP and Northern Iowa, Colorado will be a little bit of a test, I think. But you can build some momentum with those guys, and I think that's positive.
It's Mike Babcock with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Mike, we might get to this a little bit later. We hit on it at the end of our Monday show. Nebraska has found itself receiving a couple votes in the preseason coaches poll, top 25. Joel Klatt included Nebraska at number 23 on his preseason poll. I'm of the opinion that I don't think Nebraska should be ranked preseason. I think you are a 5-7 team until you prove that you aren't. That's what Matt Rhule has preached all offseason long. I'm of that same belief. What is your take on Nebraska getting some preseason love? Nobody is going bold with it. I think putting him in the back end of the top 25 is the safest play possible, saying, oh, well, there was potential. I was wrong. I think you kind of leave yourself that out. But look, I only put him at 23 or only put him at 25. But what are your thoughts generally? I think we'll probably hear from Klatt a little bit later this hour, his rationale. What are your thoughts on Nebraska being included in some of these preseason top 25s?
I was a little bit. Okay, I was more than a little bit. I was surprised. I'm kind of in your frame of mind when it comes to that. I don't think Nebraska has done anything yet to prove that it should be in that top 25 going into the season. I think that's probably a reflection of the respect that Rhule has and his willingness to get involved all around to talk about the team. He doesn't turn down many opportunities to talk about the Huskers, and I think that's a reflection of where Nebraska would have been inserted in a preseason top 25. I just don't think that there's no basis for it at this point, other than the respect that people have for Rhule and what he says.
Mike, what's coming up from you with the newsletter? Again, can subscribe the bi-weekly newsletter with Mike Babcock, Hail Varsity, Hurrdat Sports. Mike B at hurrdatsports.com is where you can email and request.
A lot of people are probably already familiar with it, but I went into a little bit about this business about number 15.
Okay.
Who's going to be wearing it for Nebraska. And also, I thought that Raiola made a comment about Ramstad in his interview last week that I thought was really reflective of Raiola's character. He said that because of Ramstad's experience, he learns from him as well. To me, that says a lot about Raiola. I mean, he's learned from everybody, regardless of whether it's a guy that's coming out of the NAIA or what's the coach.
Let's see the Grateful Dead shirt. We got to get the reveal. There it is. If you're watching on the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube, Babbers, just a normal white Dead T-shirt.
That's it. That's it.
Well, I like it. Clean and crisp looking.
It's a classic.
Back to the tie-dye next week, baby.
Yeah, I'll try to find a different one.
No, I like it. I love it. Babbers rocking the Grateful Dead. Mike, appreciate you and the insight as always, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
There he is, Mike Babcock with us from Hail Varsity, Hurrdat Sports, Mr. Husker Football. We'll hear a little bit from Joel Klatt, some of his reasoning, a little bit more from Rhule. On the way, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmidty.
Schmidty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Big thanks to Mike Babcock, and check out Babbers if you just missed part of that or want to get caught up. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play is where you go, and can check that out. Give us a review, like and subscribe, and do the review part. Also, Hail Varsity YouTube, where you can go. I'm just reading the comments on the tie. Tuck says, Dad of the Year. Tiger Shark says it's a clip-on. No, it is not. Blake, you're right on, brother. Substitute teacher vibes. That's funny.
Didn't you spend a brief amount of your time? You were a substitute teacher.
Oh, no, I was a para.
Okay.
While I was in graduate school working to get my teaching certificate and my master's in education.
Okay.
I'm short. Like, I'm in the red zone, but it might be field goal time versus the actual touchdown. I'm, I think, 9 credits short of my master's. So when I get whacked in radio again, I can go substitute.
That's the reality of radio, isn't it? You know, backup plan out of college for me was substitute teaching. Well, my brother's a teacher, my roommate's a teacher, my sister's gonna be a teacher. She's at UNL right now. It's there's a lot of parallels, I think, between radio and teaching in terms of speaking a lot. Well, like lecturing, if you will, being able to take a complex subject and simplify it.
We putting the 30 people listening to sleep. I mean, students. I love you all that are in the stream and on the airwaves. I truly mean it. Jeff Snitley says, about to hammer a Templeton and a Stogie. Jeff Snitley, I love that. That's funny. Yeah, so I mean, at times I had to lead a classroom, and this is no joke. So the kids I worked with, I would do smaller reading groups just to get the kids caught up with their reading level. And if they cooperated, the payoff would be, let's go play hoops, or let's go throw the football a little bit. Or you can spend the final 5-10 minutes of class on ESPN.com. Or that was kind of the Randy Moss era. Possibly the end of the Randy Moss era with New England, but a lot of Patriots fans in the school I taught at. So, and I somehow, some way, 20 years ago, I got a chance to do a one-on-one with Randy Moss. So it was like 3rd of July, so I still have that on CD back when...
Oh, a radio 101.
Yeah,
I thought you meant like he burnt you deep. Like you got to go cover him.
You mean Randy beat me deep? Shocking. As I pause at the 50 to grab the inhaler. But no, I got to interview Randy Moss when he was with Oakland. And long and short, I brought that in because the kids all thought I was full of crap. You didn't talk to Randy. Yeah. So Randy, he called up on that very phone you're using, and we did an interview. It was a hell of a good July 3rd show that nobody heard. But it's okay. So they thought that was cool, and we talked LeBron, but it was, let's do our work. Sorry, you got to read The Outsiders, fellas. I know it's got to take a quiz, but trust me, it'll work out. So I was working with this small reading group, and I had got it approved, but I didn't preview it the entire way through. The Muhammad Ali documentary is what I showed the rest of the class. This was a pinch hit moment where I was not only para, but I was leading the class. So I just said, all right, we're going to type in my Netflix account. We're going to watch When We Were Kings. Well, the last 15 minutes before the Rumble in the Jungle, as Muhammad Ali is running through the streets, there's some nudity. And so that was the best documentary ever, Mr. Schmidt. I'm like, oh no, what'd I do? And I get pulled to the side in the lunchroom, And
Schmidt, it's time for you to go back to radio.
No, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. I'm so sorry. I was like, I wasn't even in the room. One of the other subs was there. I was just doing some reading work with 2 or 3 other kids. And my principal's so awesome. And she's like, so I heard you show the kids some boobies today. Like, yeah, I'm so sorry. I will resign right now. And case in point, always review the class film. Lesson learned.
Before we get to more important topics, do you have any strong opinions on school beginning in the second week of August now? Class is already set to begin next week.
I'm ready for Junior to find a routine and get to it.
Okay.
Start his senior year. He's getting home late. I mean, the dude lives the life. Chipotle, Starbucks, gym.
Front row seats at Zach Bryan.
No,
Morgan Wallen.
But lower bowl seats. So he's had a good summer.
Okay.
It's been a shockingly good summer without baseball. But there we go. So thank you for the comments. It's a real tie. Again, shout out Gary Michaels. So away we go. Let's get back to football. Let's talk about mentality and that shift. Rhule's touched on it, kind of spoke with us about it a little bit back at Big Ten Media Days, reiterated this team between the ears.
I think they realize that they're good. You know, they're a bigger team than last year. They're a stronger team than last year. They're more, I don't want to say disciplined, but they know what they're doing kind of in our system more than they did last year. And even the disappointing 5-7 year, in year one, we had lots of opportunities to win those other games. And so, bring in some more players, develop the players that you have. I think our guys walk around knowing, hey, I think we have a pretty good team. And obviously we have to go do it. But I sense a confidence about them from the work they put in and from where they think they are.
So confidence is key. I think your lead dog in that confidence is GIF. Mm-hmm. GIF is so huge to that room. Dave asks a question, and this was a comment that Rhule made earlier in segment 1 when we're kind of recapping a little bit of the Infinity podcast he was part of yesterday. Did Rhule flat out say Teddy was the starter? He did. He said, our starting left tackle went down. That's what he said. That's what's on tape. But in Saturday night's contest, you had Turner out there to get a look-see. I think the biggest thing for Turner Corcoran, it's not ability, although you got to play better. It's confidence for the guy. It's absolutely confidence.
That's just where I was going to go.
It is, because he's got ability. He has size. He's performed fine. I mean, you don't have to be Jackie Slater, for God's sake, or Anthony Munoz, or pick a left tackle of today's era. The guy that Rhule mentioned, the guy.
Smith.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be going to Canton, but just make sure your quarterback doesn't get smoked from the blind side.
Well, I guess he mentioned Trent Williams, but
yes, Trent is where I was going.
Confidence is key with Corcoran, and back to Rhule's point with that confidence shift, like, what happens when things start to go wrong? What happens for Turner whenever somebody from Colorado starts abusing him?
It's going to happen.
What happens for the team if you lose a one-score game to Colorado? What happens with confidence then? That's kind of my question. It's easy to be confident going into a season.
Sure. Well, yeah. How do you bounce back? The adversity part.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, we'll spend a few minutes with Evan Bland here to get the 5 o'clock hour going. And Lars Anderson. And Lars, a New York Times best-selling author, does his own radio down in Birmingham and across the state of Alabama. Some big red thoughts from Lars. What's he think? What's he like? He's a ways away, but loves following Nebraska football. Grew up here with it. And we'll check in on some Bama thoughts as well, but more so we'll talk to Lars about the Big Red and just what he's been up to aside from radio. Lars is going to have a pretty awesome book that he's working on come out here at some point. 489-1240, 489-1240, number to get in. 800-825-5865. Tomorrow, road show. We are at the Pinnacle Bank Championship, Indian Creek. Today we are locked in studio, but we get out on the course tomorrow and Friday with a boat show, the Prestige Worldwide show for us on Friday. A lot of Nebraskans, Nebraska flavor at Pinnacle Bank Championship with Brandon Crick, Scott Gucheski, Luke Gucheski, and Trevor as well. You've got Noah Hoffman, Alex Shockey, Carson Shockey, and then Nate Vaughn. So there's some great Nebraska golfers that are going to be on hand for that. And just an incredible environment. It is so cool. I think we're going to be, are we on 17 or 18 tomorrow?
17.
17. So we're right around the hospitality tent, where if you go up there and listen, if you're a corporate setup that wants to take care of your employees or just do a getaway day, it's awesome. I mean, all sorts of drink options, food, and then just the gallery, the way they set that up the last several years we've been up there, really cool. And it's such high-level golf. It's really, really fascinating.
And that 17th is a par 3. If there's any hole-in-ones, I'm told free drinks.
Really?
For the folks hanging out around 17.
You paying for that too?
I'm not. No. No. That would absolutely max out the credit card.
Elijah's going to say, here's the plastic pre-Colorado. You're going to double down. I'm kidding. I don't want to get you in any trouble.
Thank you. I will say, though, Nate Vaughn's got a chance. He's going to be golfing. Got a chance one time up at the simulators up in Omaha. It's like 15 guys. Got to watch him golf a little bit. He was my graduating class here in Lincoln. And it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen for him to be like, oh, I'm 340 yards out. I know exactly my driver's going to go exactly that far, and it's going to carry that water by about 2 feet, and he hits his shot, and you go, wow, the ball carried that water by about 2 feet and went 340 yards. That's incredible. All of his clubs, he knew exactly how far it was going to go, and I'm like, that's incredible to me. Full confidence that you're not going to shank one right or left. It goes where you need it to go. It was incredible to see the levels of control, the levels of control in golf.
Pretty awesome. Now, I was able to commandeer my father's driver, the good driver, that I got that, and every time I hit a sweet drive last Saturday, Uncle Mark raised the price $75. We started the round off at $100 for the driver. By about a hole 12 or 13, he's like, yeah, things up to $250 now. Kept feeding him beer, so I was hoping to pull the old switcheroo, put the old driver in his bag, take the better driver and put it in my bag.
No.
Uncle Mark, what were you trying to do to me here? He recognized on 17. That makes me sad. All right, Evan Bland, Lars Anderson this hour. Hail Varsity, we're powered by Cornhead Lager.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Evan Bland with the Omaha World Herald at Evan Bland, OWH on Twitter. Evan, how's it going? Thanks for the time, man.
Hey, guys. Yeah, doing well. Just enjoying this top 10 weather day today.
It is just phenomenal outside. Going to be even better tomorrow. And assuming we don't get drenched with some thunderstorms here into the weekend, I mean, Evan, you're going to have to dust your clubs off, brother, I think.
Well, with my talent level, it might be the mini golf clubs at this point. You know, I'm usually good for a hole-in-one every 18 or so on that side of it. But, no, it's great. With the heat wave we've had the last 2 weeks, just kind of the chance to get out. I'm not going to be fooled into thinking the heat's gone forever, but it's a nice little break and maybe just a little taste of what we're going to be getting for football season coming up.
I will be fooled into thinking the heat's not going to come back personally.
Double down on 79 and phenomenal. That's right. Going to be a breakthrough football season for Nebraska. Going to be a breakthrough weather climate for the state of Nebraska. It's going to be like this all fall. I mean, all good vibes heading into December, Evan.
That's true. The key, though, is you got to pace yourself with the quarter zips. Like, you don't want to bust those out too soon. You got to hold off, time that well. When you make your transition to, jeans or whatever it is from shorts, you can't go too soon. So, the older you get, the more savvy, I suppose, you are with these things.
No, it's very true, because if you transition too early, not only is it going to make the end of your summer more difficult, also makes the start of your winter much more difficult if you're already acclimated. The key, I keep on wearing short sleeves until we get below 60. That's my cutoff.
Elijah goops up in Vaseline and shows up to the pregame without sleeves. Andy checks in. Evan can't golf? ? Come on, man. He doesn't believe that there's some questionable talent with your golf game.
Oh, well, it won't take long to prove it. I can tell you that. But no, it's I enjoy doing it, but it's just you get one or two good shots. That's what you remember. I think that's the siren song that we all fall into with golf. But then you look at the scorecard at the end, and it's just it's unseemly, it's unsightly. I think I'm doing everyone a favor by staying away.
Well, let it be known, Schmidty and I can't golf either, but we still go out every weekend. Schmidty goes out every weekend.
We still donate. Let's get into football, Evan, and a lot going on this week in the news cycle. We'll start with Teddy Prochazka. I want your thought on just Nebraska on the offensive line, as far as, do you recalibrate? It's a question we talked about with Mitch and Babbers, and I want your take on it. And then take me back to what you thought from a recruiting standpoint Turner Corcoran could be at Nebraska, because I know you cover recruiting, and it's been 5 years, but that dude was wanted by everybody on the offensive line.
Well, Corcoran, I went out to Lawrence before he signed in that class a handful of years ago. And, you're right. Everybody wanted him. Michigan wanted him, a lot of your top schools. And at the time, he chose Nebraska kind of on faith that it would be something that would turn around. He liked the proximity, all the rest. Of course, that was before NIL was really a factor at all. So he believed that Nebraska could turn around, and wouldn't it be something if the end of his career turns out to be that way? But I think one thing that's interesting about the conversation is that at that open practice, the Big Red preview on Saturday, Corcoran was the guy at left tackle with the first team offensive line, while Teddy was with that second group. And so it almost kind of feels like that Turner was in position to make things interesting and maybe be that guy on the left side anyway. And obviously you hate what happened with Teddy and just the bad luck he's had in his career. It's not fair. It's unfortunate, for a guy who already tore his other ACL. And we heard from him last week among some of the players that spoke, and just to hear him so excited at the time about making it through the spring healthy and being able to be done with rehab and focus on improving, your heart breaks just a little more, even now knowing he's going to have to go back through that again. And it just hasn't worked out to this point. But I think the offensive line can handle it when you look at kind of the big picture. With Corcoran there, and then Matt Rhule mentions Gunnar Gatula, the Lincoln Southeast kid, who's a redshirt freshman now. He might be that next guy at tackle. Beyond that, Tyler Knack, we've seen him in action out there. Jacob Hood, the former Georgia transfer, looked slimmer, I thought, in practice than he had been. He was a former touted prospect who may be developing into something and someone who could contribute on that end too. So it's not an injury, I think, that breaks Nebraska the way that maybe something similar would have done 2 or 3 years ago. I think they have the depth to handle it. You're going to get Henry Letofsky back from his calf issue here before the season, it looks like. You feel pretty good, I think, about your guards when you talk about Ben Scott at center and Justin Evans and what Micah Mazuka's done. So, and then you have Bryce Benhart, who's been a mainstay and who's going to be the career starts leader for Nebraska here in the opener. So I still think you have enough to feel optimistic about what the line can be, but there's no doubt the injury deals a hit to that depth, and of course on a personal side you just feel awful for Teddy.
It's Evan Bland with us here, and Evan, I think this may, and maybe we'll have to get your thoughts on this. I think this kind of puts the left tackle at a spot where Nebraska can't afford any more injuries. We'll see how they kind of manage Corcoran through fall camp here, but another injury, especially one that's going to take a significant amount of time to return from anyone in that left tackle room, would put off a whole bunch of alarm bells for me. Any other spots in the offensive line where you think Nebraska can't afford an injury? What does the right tackle spot look like with Benhart? Do you look at the guard spot with Lutovsky already missing the majority of fall camp as being another spot? Are there any other spots besides that left tackle spot where Nebraska can't afford another injury?
I mean, probably right tackle would be the one. I think you do have some depth in the guard spots. I mean, Justin Evans has taken snaps at center. I know Nebraska feels comfortable if he had to slide over into that spot. Lutovsky has mainly worked as a guard and seen decent snaps and snap totals in games. So, they feel pretty good about him. You still hear about the rise of some of the younger guys, Sam Sledge being one of them who was behind the scenes last year. So I think you could still feel pretty good that Nebraska has 2 or 3 game-ready sort of contributors in the middle. Right tackle, it probably would be Gatula as well, maybe, who would be that next guy in, or some of the other players that we mentioned. But it does seem at this point that the interior is kind of where they're stacked. They're still developing some of those tackles long-term. Obviously, they like guys like Grant Bricks. Preston Taliamua was someone else I know they liked on the edge at times. So I think long term, you have some younger guys that are ready that are eventually projected to be big time contributors. But I think when you're talking about this year, now that Prochazka's down, it does sort of limit your depth and potentially could thrust some younger players into action early if another injury crops up.
Evan, let's talk about some of those younger guys you mentioned, and guys haven't been in the program all that long, but some of them are going into year 2, and you've named them. What does it say to you about where there are, presumably based on Saturday night, in the depth chart, about Raiola's development plan, and also the way Nebraska practices? They go against a stout defense. Has Nebraska possibly hit on a good crop of linemen, and then you factor in who they practice against, how they practice, and the Coach Donnie approach to it? I mean, Nebraska has for a long time recruited high-level offensive linemen. You've never seen them necessarily hit their ceiling. Do we see that change here in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be one of the major storylines for 2025, I think. I mean, Ben Scott's going to be done. Bryce Benhart will be done. Corcoran will be done. Mazuka, I think, will be done. So, you're going to see, a line change in a pretty significant order. So I think that's something you can watch this year is, if you're Nebraska, you're enjoying the experience and the savviness that these older guys have. But I think you also do want to start at when the opportunity arises, getting more snaps for that next generation of guys. And I think they still like Evans as a center, maybe longer term. We mentioned Bricks. They like Gibson Pyle, who's, a young guy in the program as well. Jake Peters was somebody they like. Jason Machachok, the kid from up north who came in as a defensive lineman and converted. They really like his physical skills long term. And then Xander Ruggioli, the Bishop Gorman kid, who's a freshman too. So, I mean, yes, the class that they just brought in of linemen is one of the better hauls they've had at that position in recent memory. And so they have the luxury this year, certainly, of redshirting and getting their bodies right and learning behind the scenes, and maybe even in 2025, some of them. But I do think, again, when you have that much turnover among your starters going into a year from now, it would behoove you to see what you have, get some experience, let those guys sort of ease into life in the Big Ten, as opposed to having to kind of get thrown into the fire the way that guys like Benhart have or Teddy Prochazka have earlier in their careers. That's a luxury some of the best teams have, and Nebraska feels like maybe it has the talent that it's getting to the point now where on the offensive line it can get old and stay old like some of those great Nebraska teams of yesteryear.
Well, Evan, let's zoom out with this question here and just talk about the younger guys in general. It's kind of a Matt Rhule standard is younger guys are going to see the field early and often. It might be in smaller roles, might be in bigger roles, however they see fit. They like to get the young guys on the field. Following what we saw at Saturday's open practice, I should say, are there any names you think we should watch for or listen for as fall camp progresses in terms of guys that could see the field often? Some names that come to mind for me, Vincent Shavers has had a lot of great reports on the defensive side of the ball. Mekhi Nelson seemed like he impressed at Saturday's open practice. What names are you going to be watching for as fall camp progresses?
Yeah, Shavers is a good one. He made the elite list a bunch this summer, too. You hear his name come up a ton at linebacker. We've heard of Amari Sanders, a freshman defensive back, who's made some plays. And, you know, I think he has a decent chance as anyone to maybe crack that too deep in a pretty crowded secondary. Offensively, I think Ja'Cory Barney is maybe going to be the most fun player to watch on that side of the ball. I mean, he was returning punts. We saw what he did in the spring game on the kickoff, even though he mistook the kicker for being on his team. So, I mean, he's electric. He's been a deep ball threat. We saw him do what he could do. So in terms of, like, true freshman guys that could jump in, I think those are the ones that stand out to me. But then you have a bunch of other guys who got limited snaps, who were thrown into the fire last year because of injury, that I'll be curious to see where they pick up where they left off. You know, Jalen Lloyd, Malachi Coleman, Emmett Johnson. I mean, those guys got opportunities that maybe before the season they weren't expecting to get. And, you know, to hear them kind of reflect on their season, I mean, those game reps are invaluable in terms of motivating, in terms of how you prepare and knowing what to expect and all the rest. So I think kind of that blend of some of the impact freshmen and then some younger guys who got that first taste, you know, those are spots that I would look at for potential breakouts and guys who could really take that next step.
What's your take on Keona Davis? I mean, the guy is get him off the bus, right, and intimidate, but Coach Knighton went with a Sue comparison.
Yeah, high praise. And,
yeah,
you know, I mean, he's a guy who, like, 5 or 6 years ago, if you heard that in fall camp, I think you would say, oh, man, you know, he's going to be in the rotation right away. He's going to, you know, get some snaps. But, like, I think you got to name, like, 8 to 10 guys at that position before you even talk about him with your, you know, your starters and your rotational guys. Like, that's such a deep position for Nebraska right now that you can put that guy behind the scenes for, you know, 2 years if he needs to be, to grow and to learn the scheme and all the rest. Like, that's an interesting prospect, just again in the sense of, like, if he's getting size comparisons to Sue and this idea that he could have that kind of physique in 3 years, that gets your attention for sure. But, like, in terms of 2024, I just don't know how he gets on the field outside of some special teams work or maybe occasional late game snaps for 4 games so he can preserve his red shirt. But I think it's just another reminder that, like, this is a program that's starting to stockpile talent and ability, and Nebraska's finally getting to the place where you don't have to rely on those guys to jump in right away, where you have older players, where you have some depth. And, you know, I think it's very much a positive that people are not talking about Keona Davis as a guy who needs to come in and contribute right away in the trenches in the Big Ten, and that he can learn from some of these guys who've done it at a high level ahead of him. So he's someone, certainly you kind of, you know, maybe you dog-ear that page and reference back to it in a year or two, but, you know, right now I think they're just happy to have him developing behind the scenes and being, you know, another quality piece of what they do in practice.
Evan, what's coming up from you as we get deeper into fall camp?
Well, what are we, 3 weeks away here from the season opener? So we're getting to that point where I think people are ready for some stuff to start happening on the field. But, you know, I'll have some pieces here coming up. I'm going to have a recruiting update on Christian Jones here in a bit, the West Side linebacker who's probably set to make a decision here in a few weeks. Going to have a piece on injuries at Nebraska this weekend. Kind of, you think about all the guys who were hurt last year and who are back. It's kind of an interesting environment right now where like a big season for Nebraska would be exciting for the team, but I think even more so for some of these guys who rehabbed behind the scenes, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda or Turner Corcoran a little bit, and Elliott Brown and Deshaun Singleton, the safety, and Ramir Johnson, Gabe Irvin, like so many guys who have worked their way back for this opportunity. So kind of exploring that a little bit as well. And then you never know what's going to come out. I have a couple more weekends of practice. Of course, they have a scrimmage this weekend that should be pretty influential in some decisions as well.
Evan, we look forward to it, bud. Take care, and thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, we welcome in college football man, host of his own radio show, Lars Anderson, at Lars Anderson 71. New York Times best-selling author. Lars, how many times, brother? Are we talking a touchdown, extra point? We up to double digits yet?
Well, currently working on book number 14, and I have been extremely fortunate and blessed to have several that have made the Times list. But here's the deal. You could write anything you wanted about Alabama, and the book will sell. Even if you don't have any pictures, the book will sell.
So, well, tell us what's.
Sorry, I'm in no way making fun of my readership in Alabama.
No, I know.
I'm tremendously grateful. I would never do that.
Lars, what are you working on now, man?
I am working on a extremely long book project on a guy who has won more Super Bowls than anyone else. So I have a couple people working for me full-time this summer doing reporting. Tom Brady has led an incredibly rich life. And, man, there's so many aspects to covering Tom. But what I'm trying to do is not just, this state sort of, he did this, he did that, he did this. No. What we're trying to do, my team, is interpret Tom Brady. What does Tom Brady say about celebrity in our culture? What does Tom say about celebrity? What does his relationship with Giselle reveal? There's a lot of meat to chew on there, and it's been a lot of fun, really digging into this for the last few months and examining his life.
So, how difficult a get was this? Did you get to go to the roast? Two-part question.
Well, so the book that I wrote prior to this is called A Season in the Sun, and that was about Tampa Bay with Brady winning the Super Bowl. And through that experience, I got to know Tom a little bit. But mostly it was Bruce Arians, the Tampa's head coach at the time, that gave me just unbelievable access for that project. And actually, it was the afternoon that I turned 50. My mom, who I hadn't seen in about 2.5 years because of the pandemic, she knocks on the door and surprises me. And right when she knocks on the door, guess who calls me? After we've been texting for like weeks, months, it's Tom. And so I then at that very moment, okay, what do I do here? I haven't seen my mom for a long, long time. My mom's getting up there in age. And obviously I need to talk to Tom. What would you have done in that moment, Chris?
Mom, grab a drink. I'll be right with you. I usually ask my family. I put work way too much in front at times, but that was a phone call. What did you do, and did Mom understand?
I told Tom I got to call you back, brother.
Oh wow!
And
look at you.
I did. And I think he respected that. But, who knows? But as of now, Mr. Thomas Brady is not cooperating with this book. And that is normal for when you're doing this sort of massive biography on a person who is still alive. But holding out hope that, eventually we'll be able to spend some time with Tom and more importantly, his dad. I mean, his dad, Tom Sr., is absolutely everything to him, his hero. In a lot of ways, I think he voices what Tom's actually thinking, but Tom is sort of too savvy and shrewd to do stuff like that. And so, we'll see how it goes. But it's been wonderful so far. I mean, just imagine the amount of players who have been on a Tom Brady team. And so really what we're doing, and this is what I would advise anyone who is trying to do a book on a celebrity, is that you work the outer edges. And by that I mean, I want to talk to the guy in 2004 who was in training camp for 2 weeks and then got cut. You guarantee you he's got a Tom Brady story that he's told at dinner parties for the last 20 years, right? Like, all these guys have got Tom Brady stories. And so the challenge is to try to find everyone who kind of fits that bill. And then from all of the stories, anecdotes you collect, a narrative begins to emerge.
Moving on to the SEC and Big Ten, it's 12-team playoff football, Lars. How's Tuscaloosa warming up to the next? As St. Nick has stepped away, he'll be killing it on game day. But now you got Kalen DeBoer wearing the headset.
Yeah, as someone whose parents grew up in South Dakota, I'm a big Kalen DeBoer guy, and had the chance to speak to him a couple times and reflect on our South Dakota roots. And I, after the first practice here, and it even for Alabama, it was hot in August, and he just walked into the media room just dripping in sweat, and he's like, "Oh, now I get what Southern training camps are like." But I think the transition is gone as well as possible. He's got to be his own person, and so he's doing things different than Nick. Like he has music going at practice. It seems to be just a little bit of a more relaxed environment in the football facility called the Mount Moore Athletic Complex, and how that will translate, who knows? But the guy is a proven winner everywhere he's been, and he has gotten a lot of his kids from Washington, to come to Tuscaloosa, and it'll be fascinating. I think they're facing an uphill battle to make the college football playoffs, but you never know, because at the end of last season, I think you could make the argument that Jalen Milroe was playing as good as any quarterback in the country. I mean, again, given his skill set. And I happened to bump into Jalen just the other day on campus, and we talked for a little bit, and I got to tell you, man, he looks really good. He looks leaner than last year, and he is just so excited about this offense. He's really excited about the offensive line for Alabama, which last year was an issue that really showed up in the national semifinal against Michigan. Again, a game that Alabama had in the bag. There was like 8 plays that went in Michigan's favor in that game, which gave Michigan the win. And I think a lot of people forget that Alabama was at several different points in that Rose Bowl was about ready to put the final nail in the coffin. And to Michigan's credit, they didn't allow Alabama to do that. And so, but, Jalen looks good. He likes the offense. And DeBoer, again, I love the fact that they just didn't hire a Saban disciple, right? And it's Greg Byrne, who's the athletic director at Alabama, Nebraska guy, by the way. Everything ties back into Nebraska. You guys know that. Greg spent his formative years in Lincoln when his dad, Bill Byrne, was the AD at Nebraska. And Greg and I, because of our shared background, have become very close over the years. And he doesn't do this nonsense of hiring a search committee and paying them, $1 million. He does it all by himself, sort of in seclusion, right? And I had no idea that DeBoer was his target, and he got his man. And he did the same thing with Nate Oates, the head coach of the basketball team at Alabama. Nate Oates now just got his best recruiting class in the country, and it's the team that's been in the Final Four, won SEC titles. Alabama basketball is going to be stronger than ever this upcoming year, and they'll have another terrific opportunity to get, I think, to go deep into the tournament. But again, it's a testament to the athletic director here, Byrne, and it's always kind of nice to know, as we're all fellow Nebraskans, that he still retains these hardcore Nebraska values.
It's Lars Anderson with us, Hail Varsity Radio at Lars Anderson 71. And Lars, of course, daily radio in Birmingham and across the state of Alabama. Some thoughts there on the Tide. We'll get his take on his outlook for Nebraska football. What's he think of what's he's hearing on Dylan Raiola from afar, and Coach Rhule and the Big Red, and some of Lars's mates in the national media. I'm sure they've huddled up a time or two on the Big Red. Some bullish predictions for Nebraska. More with Lars. Coming up at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Couple more minutes. Lars Anderson with us, Hail Varsity Radio, co-host of Sky High Radio in Alabama, across the state, and New York Times best-selling author, with us at Lars Anderson 71 on Twitter. Lars, let's talk Nebraska. Tough news this week. Teddy Prochazka, presumed starting left tackle, done for the year. His third season-ending injury. A former four-star tackle that's got 30-plus starts, Turner Corcoran. It's his spot now, and we'll see how it moves forward. But the hype and buzz very real around Dylan Raiola. Looked great Saturday in a non-padded scrimmage, but he's kind of got that it factor. Nebraska may have a real deal quarterback, 9-back defensively. How's your optimism, Lars? I know you keep track of that Husker heartbeat.
Absolutely, and optimism could not be higher. I think there's a chance that Raiola could almost help Nebraska Nebraska rewrite the script for how to build a national contender in this age of NIL and transfer portal, where you get one stud player, and you pay through the nose to get him, and you guys probably know you guys know the dollar figure, I'm guessing, of what he's getting compensated this year.
We've had whispers.
Probably in the neighborhood of,
we've had whispers.
I'm guessing $5 million. $5 million, is that about right?
You're high on that number, but
3,
still high.
Okay, 2 or 1.5, whatever. But the point is, and I don't think I'm too high, honestly. But the point is, you bring in one guy, and what does that do? That attracts everybody else, because it's just like, free agency in the NFL. And because now there's no restrictions to transferring, suddenly you get wide receivers wanting to play with Raiola. You've seen an influx of guys, seen an influx of offensive linemen, and it's very interesting to me. And I don't know the answer to this because I'm not there day in and day out like you guys. Nebraska's not losing players.
No.
Alabama lost, and I'll tell you this. I know this on really good authority. The final straw for Nick Saban was after that loss in the Rose Bowl. They come back to Tuscaloosa, and Nick is having his exit meetings with the players, and Caleb Downs comes in. Caleb Downs, amazing safety, right? Freshman, All-American. This kid is going to be a top 10 at worst, if he doesn't get hurt, NFL pick, right? And he basically held Nick's feet to the fire by saying, how much money can you give me? And Nick then told Miss Terry about that horrible conversation, and Miss Terry said, you're done. And he was done. So, Caleb Downs, congratulations. You ended Nick Saban's career.
But you made your asking price at Ohio State. Nebraska will get to see Mr. Downs end of October. Lars, what's the number before we say goodbye? How many wins for the Big Red this year?
Let me ask you guys, will they be 7-0 going into that Ohio State game?
I think they have the potential, but based on recent history, I would say no. They'll slip up somewhere.
Yep, they'll slip up.
Against who?
Either the Buffs or Rutgers.
I mean, the only two that you can say with certainty that they haven't slipped up in recent years would be Northern Iowa and UTEP. Those are the two types of games they've been able to win over the past decade. All the other ones are still
or they haven't played either of them.
That's fair. The types of opponent.
So, boy, we really are in a new world when Rutgers is, looming big on the schedule for Nebraska
Don't
football.
sleep on Schiano.
No, Schiano, it is defense, bro, against a freshman. Listen, I think Rhule's big time.
I've spent a good chunk of time with Greg Schiano, and he's a great coach. But Rutgers has no business competing with Nebraska, and I know that it's sort of been a draw, so to speak, the last few years. But man, I really think, again, from afar and from what coaches in Alabama, what Bruce Arians is telling me, what the guys like Rich Rodriguez, who I'm still really close with, who coaches here at a smaller school in Alabama, they love Matt Rhule. They love Matt Rhule, and just think that he's doing it right. And I think Nebraska fans should feel really good about the state of the program, and it'll be really fascinating to see what Nebraska does this year. And again, in talking with all of my buddies, Bruce Feldman, Andy Staples, different national writers, one of the main storylines that they are focused on at the beginning of the year is Nebraska back, and we've been, those of us with Nebraska roots, those of us who live in Nebraska, we've been asking that question ever since Chris Brown ripped through the middle of our defense back in '98 or whenever that was.
It was 2001, but there's not enough vodka and bourbon in the world to forget that 6 times.
But I'm telling you that run by Brown, that game,
which one?
That was the end. Yeah, exactly. That game was the end. That was the end of Osborne, and I know we went on to play in the national championship game, but we had no business being in that game. It all goes back to that damn Colorado game, and I certainly hope Matt Rhule reminds his players of that. I would guarantee a whole bunch of former Nebraska players will be back for that game. And also just the nonsense of Deion Sanders' son and his just line after the game about what happened pregame with Matt Rhule.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I talked about this at length on my radio show because it really pissed me off. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Lars, get up here for Boulder and get up here for CU Nebraska, all right? We want to see you the 7th.
Will do. Good talking to you guys.
It's Lars Anderson with us, and good to get caught up with Lars. We'll try and rope Lars back in for some more college football thoughts during the season. But, a lot of guys he has written with and worked with on the national scene like them some Matt Rhule. They like them some Dylan Raiola. And Lars always optimistic about his Huskers. We'll wind down a Wednesday edition Hail Varsity, and we're powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Super fired up road show tomorrow and Friday up at the Pinnacle Bank Championship, Indian Creek. It is an awesome event annually in Omaha, and please come check things out if you can make your way. We would offer to write a doctor's note.
I would offer to buy the first round if I wasn't already doing it for the Colorado game.
Elijah's just bribery 2024.
I said I would, but I'm not going to, okay?
Get on out to the Pinnacle Bank Championship. Incredible time with some of the best there is on the golf course. And check us out in the stream tomorrow or tune in on the Hail Varsity Radio Network. A reminder to get buckled up. Driving is a full-time job. Phones, food, and friends need your attention when you're not driving. Stop the discussions. Put the phone down. Just drive. A message from the NDOT, Highway Safety Office, off to the Nebraska Broadcasters Association banquet tonight. See if we bring back a little hardware for the show, for the station. That's incredible. Excited for that. And big thanks to Lars. If you missed his 2-part interview, check that out. Check Lars out and all of our guests, Mike Babcock, Evan Bland, today on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Hail Varsity Radio Podcast. Give us a rating, good, bad, ugly. We'll take it, like, and subscribe. Same with the YouTube channel, Hail Varsity YouTube. Can get all the info you want when it comes to player interviews, Coach Rhule press conferences, and then our daily shows posted there as well. And find us on Twitter at HVarsityRadio. Give that a follow at Herbal Essence at Schmidt_radio.
And one thing we did not get into today, Schmidty, that I think we can cover here the last 2 minutes of the show. We made light of the fact that you're wearing a boot on one foot. Are you a sneakers with your suit kind of guy? What's going on the other foot? You can bring it up for the stream here.
I am.
Just pretty normal. Those Oxfords? No. I'm trying to figure out in the stream.
They're Uggs. What?
For the people on the radio, they're going to think you're wearing those stupid boots.
No, I'm not. I'm not wearing. Oh, we shot Chewbacca. No, it's not those kind of Uggs. Uggs, Tom Brady's dress shoe line. They're cool. They're awesome. They're super comfortable.
Shot Chewbacca.
Well, you know what I'm saying. How the gals will wear the fluffy Uggs that fold down.
Yeah. I'm glad you clarified. So made me laugh. Is the thought of you wearing a pair of those furry boots?
I can't wear the female Uggs because my wife has all of them.
Well, you can.
No,
that means you have them at your house. I mean, that puts you in a better place than 90% of Americans to wear the Ugg boots.
The best thing about buying Uggs is watching the puppy chew them up. It's hilarious.
Well, you could make a new pair of Uggs after you chew them up.
I said, Sterling Schmidt, you go to town, man. She left them out. It's funny. It's funny. So yeah, they're kind of that hybrid, comfortable sole dress shoe look.
Nice.
And then we've got the walking boot.
Okay, you could go full-on outfit pick if you want, just to really show it off. I'll snag a pick for you if you want to feel really confident heading to the bank.
I'm all right. We'll figure it out.
Not gonna show off the fit, okay?
Well, tuck that leg into the boot. Yeah. Maybe I'll just keep wearing this thing because there is a little room for a flask. All right, back tomorrow at 4 from the Pinnacle Bank Championship at Indian Creek. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.